Greetings, one and all. This is Derek with Denver Yoga Underground. I want to share something that's been coming up for me more personally. It's some reflection on saying no within the context or drawing upon the tools of yoga. Now, in my study of the yogic scriptures, I've never run across anything that explicitly says, here's how you say yes and here's how you say no in really in those terms, but there's certainly a lot of kind of points of reference that kind of can help us lean in a bit on this question around the boundaries of no and the embrace of yes, which is such a fundamental life skill. Recently, I was talking to some students at Metro College. These are young people who are just getting ready to graduate, and um, I wanted to, and we've been teaching this course for the whole semester, and we're coming to the end, and they're getting ready to spread their wings, and I wanted to give them something that very simple, that a simple message that they could carry forward with them in their new emerging lives. I mean, we live at a time when never have there been so many choices and options. Hello, Amazon. Hello, TikTok. Hello, you know, so many possibilities, an exposed world, as it were, and yet so that and never has there been so little guidance, right? So I had this moment with them and started leaning into this idea of the power of yes and the power of no as guiding principles in the life process that they will can look forward to a whole life of addressing that fundamental question, like, now what am I saying yes to, what am I saying no to, where am I putting my energy, right? And Bhagavad Gita, if you've ever read this text, in many ways is um, tries to answer that question. Tries to, but it leaves. In some ways, it's clarifying, and in other ways, there's still this kind of raw tension that we need to work through as human beings as we navigate the domains of yeses and nos in our life. Now, broadly and philosophically, the power of no is an example of this principle called boundary. Boundary. Boundary is what separates one object for another. So this fence, this perception of a fence behind me, and then Derek in the center, is a construction of boundary, right? And deciding to get married or not is another example of boundary. And the underlying force of boundary itself, what makes boundaries, whether it's visually or through our senses, this is separate than that, or making life choices. I'm choosing these things and to the exclusion of all others. So when you get married, at least in our culture, you're saying no to other partners. The operative force of boundary making is the ahamkara, is the I sense. The I sense. That is the primal boundary in and of itself. Me over here and the rest of existence sliced up in all these little parts and bits. And, it appears as though it's all happening out there. Oh, that's separate than that, it's separate than that. But the kind of dividing force within the psyche that creates boundary is this principle of ahamkar, commonly called the ego or the I sense. Okay? So when we say no, we assert a particular boundary within the creation. And this, and it's not done in isolation. It's not done, wholly and purely and sort of empty of a past. Our ability to create boundaries is profoundly informed by things like memory. Like, how safe was it for us to create boundaries in the past? Or maybe we had our boundaries violated in one way or another, which makes this whole boundary proposition um, more scary, or maybe less approachable, or less an option, right? We can fearfully, I know I do this, talk myself out of what is an appropriate boundary based on kind of anxiety from the past. Oh, it didn't work. And not even like consciously. It's just like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. I guess I'll just collapse. I guess I'll just fold. It really doesn't matter. I'll kind of make up for things over here. I'll just sacrifice some of my energy this way in this department, and that'll more or less be the same as if I were to say no, to say no. But it's not. It's not. All the configuring and gymnastics and backbending and deal making on the side to prevent one from saying no or to compensate for not having said no is actually quite taxing. It takes a lot of energy. Small example. I was looking at this retreat space for yoga, and we needed a kitchen. We really did to pull off this operation. There was one available, but it didn't. They weren't willing for us to use it. They had their own reasons. God bless them. I respect that too. But I thought, well, we can just go rent another space, or we'll just find a kitchen somewhere. But when I sat with it and was really honest with myself, it's like, do I really want to do that? Is that really a reflection of the kind of, say, exchange I want to be in? The answer was no. The answer was no. And there was so many amazing things about this space that I was intending, but the right answer was no in that instance. So what makes saying no more safe or more approachable or available to us, right? So here's some further yogas we can lean into. And number one is understanding your own value system, the things that you are fundamentally committed to as a human being on this earth, being a parent, being loving, being supportive, being, in right communication, right relationship. Those are some of the things that I happen to try to live into every day, and I'm tested on the edges all the time. But I basically know that about this self, and am willing to go through the necessary maintenance to uphold those things, right? And so having some basic sense of what's important to you as a human being will fortify your ability to say yes and no in all life circumstances. And my experience, this has gotten easier with life experience, with time, with maturing. And another really vital piece that empowers our values and again makes it easier to say yes and no is having some vital community around you, or satsang. Satsang means, interestingly, sat is truth and sangha is like a gathering. So a gathering of truth, a gathering of like-minded individuals who share your particular values, more or less, and can be there they care more about your authentic well-being than their particular agenda. Sort of an odd way to say it, but what I mean is you're around supportive people, right? That makes it um, helpful. And number three is having having regularly visiting the toolbox of yoga practice, right? So having an established yoga practice, which has all these amazing, powerful, and potent tools to elevate our well-being and level of integration and self-understanding, that if we don't work with the tools on a regular basis, that they're less sharp or less strong in moments of need, right? And this works proactively too. If you do regular yoga practice, it's less likely that friction is going to come up in the first place. And when friction does come up, you're that much more resourced in how you address it. Okay, so consistency of practice helps in some form or another, right? Number three or four is understanding that there is a cost to compromising our values that is probably not worth it. Like I could have gone through with this whole retreat scenario, but I know that it would weigh on me, and that there would be something not right in the equation. Or I can think of other examples where I've given like a false yes. Oh, yes, that'll work fine. That'll work great. Sure, I'll just collapse over here. And it's always proven to be like too expensive, not worth it. So understanding the cost of falsely saying yes to things rather than no will feed our ability to simply say no, right? And here's a principle. It shows up in Yoga Sutra and other places. Shraddha, which means faith. Faith. Faith in your evolution, faith in the process, faith in the teacher or the teachings, to lean in a bit on this principle of faith when it comes to making decisions, pressing things aside. I'm saying yes to this, and it means saying no to these things over here. Okay. So I invite you to consider, like, here's the application part. I invite you to consider where in your life you might benefit from simply acknowledging there's a no here. There's a no here. God bless you, my friends. Wish you peace on the path of yoga. Hari Om Tat Sat. Till next time, wish you well. Peace.